Hello. So, I thought that I saw some really good videos that were posted on our page on glycolysis and gluconeogenisis, so I wasn't going to go into really deep detail on those. And if someone watching this doesn't have access to those, Googling, glycolysis and gluconeogenesis will yield a ton of results. So I will leave that to other people, but there are a few things that made it easier for me to understand that I just wanted to touch on. So first off, glycolysis. I'm going to stand in front of this for just a second. So glycolysis, if you can remember that kinases add and remove phosphates. So all the enzymes that end in kinase are going to add or remove a phosphate. And in glycolysis, what does that mean? It means they're the ones that are going to do stuff with ATP. So if you know that ATP happens at this step, you know that the enzyme is going to be a kinase. Or if you prefer memorizing enzymes and you can't remember where the ATP is, then if it's a kinase, then there's going to be something happening with ATP. In the first 5 steps, it's going to break ATP down into ADP. If it's in the second 5 steps, then it's going to take ADP and make it into ATP. Remember, ATP is adenosine triphosphate, and that's why it's called ADP after it loses a phosphate, because then it's adenosine diphosphate. A phosphate has just been taken off. So kinases do that. It makes the enzyme names and everything actually mean something, rather than being random stuff to just memorize. So, now in gluconeogenesis, once you've got glycolysis down, gluconeogenesis is just going in reverse except for 3 steps. Everything is the same except for 3 steps. Step 10, because in glycolysis there are 10 steps. Step 10, step 3, and step 1 are the 3 steps that are different in gluconeogenesis. So in step 1 and 3, we're going to go over those first, because it's really easy to know what the enzymes are called. I actually was really happy when I saw this. So in glycolysis, the substrate that you get after the first step in glycolysis is called glucose 6-phosphate, okay? And that's just the thing that is then going to be acted on and continue down the chain. And an enzyme has created this from glucose by adding a phosphate. Fructose 1,6 bisphosphate, same deal. It's the thing that step 3 in glycolysis creates. So if you're going backwards, you would arrive at fructose 1,6 bisphosphate, and then you're about to, you're trying to go up to step 2. But in this case, you can't, and so there are special enzymes for these steps. Okay? Now, the reason that I like 1 and 3, getting back to the point, is because you take these substrates and you just erase the last few letters. And it's, instead of fructose 1,6 bisphosphate, the enzyme is called fructose 1,6 bisphosphatase. And you just add tase on the end. Phosphatase. For both of these. Bam, you just memorized 2 enzymes. And that's it. Sweet. So for 10, there are 2 steps. I'm going to do them over here. So tase. If you can just remember 1, 3, tase, you're good. I have 13 cookies that I like to taste. I don't know. So, I would get fat really fast. I do like cookies. So, number 10, step 10. So step 10, you are trying to go from pyruvate, pyruvate, the culminating molecule from glycolysis. Glycolysis makes pyruvate. So pyruvate, you're trying to go backwards, but you can't. It's too big of an energy jump to go backwards with the normal enzyme that we use in between 9 and 10 in glycolysis. So in gluconeogenesis, pyruvate is acted on by the enzyme pyruvate carboxylase, which describes exactly what it's doing. It's carboxylizing pyruvate. It does this inside the mitochondria. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and draw mitochondria here. Squiggle, 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 squiggle. Makes me think of an Easter egg. Anyway, so pyruvate gets acted on by pyruvate carboxylase. Pyruvate gets acted on by pyruvate carboxylase, and I'm just going to put CBX for carboxylase. That's not a real abbreviation, I'm just trying to speed this up. So, and that yields, so those two plus each other equals oxaloacetate. Oxaloacetate. Okay? And oxaloacetate inside the mitochondria can't really do anything because it can't leave the mitochondria. It can't get out of the walls. So oxaloacetate is converted into something called malate. And I've just realized that I need to check how malate is formed, but right now this is for concepts, okay? So malate can go outside the mitochondria. I encourage you, by the way, as an aside for just a moment, if you ever come across something where it's like, I don't know, or whatever, take a second. Like, you could pause this video as a perfect example. If perhaps when you're in biochem a word is said that we don't know, just Google it. I'm sure a lot of people already do that, but I don't know. I didn't do it for a long time, and so I found it extremely helpful when I'm like, either my question didn't get fully answered or it's not worth a question for the whole class. So, could totally find out what changes oxaloacetate into malate. Malate goes outside the mitochondria and then is converted back into oxaloacetate. Oxaloacetate. And then the oxaloacetate is then converted. I'm just going to get rid of these so we have more room. For step 10, all right, so it goes from pyruvate up to oxaloacetate. And then from oxaloacetate, you have something called phosphoenol pyruvate carboxykinase. This one's actually not too bad because phosphoenol pyruvate is what the substrate in number 9 is called, okay? And so if you can just remember carboxykinase, because it's carboxylating it, then it's not too bad, okay? And I'm not putting in like ATP and GTP and NADH into this right now because this is for enzymes and concepts. For all the additions, I'm pretty sure that it's ATP down here, GTP up here, NADH in there, not pH, NADH. And that's what I remember. Verify this. There are charts everywhere. I'm just trying to get concepts. So PEP is how we can abbreviate phosphoenol pyruvate. So it's a phosphorylated pyruvate that also has an enol, so a double bond and then there's an oxygen. And then carboxykinase, because it is both adding a phosphate and carboxylating, okay? Which probably means that there's some kind of niacin related thing in here. All right, and then that takes you up to phosphoenol pyruvate. So hopefully that helps. The only other thing I can think of that helps me is to remember that isomerase and mutase just means that you're reorganizing the molecule, and there are 2 isomerases and 1 mutase in this whole chain. And if you remember, just knowing that means that if you remember the enzyme, then it helps you remember what the substrate the enzyme's creating is in both directions. So understanding the enzyme names is just a final plug for that. All right, so I hope this helps, and I won't drag it out any longer. Cheers.